Hi, this is Bix Weir with RoadToRoota.com coming to you from the greenhouse again, and it is lovely sunny California. Nice break in the weather. Sun's out, a little chilly, but great weather, and we're going to have at least 2 or 3 days of this. And then it's going to start raining again. I want to talk about a few things. One, if you haven't caught the interview with me and Cliff High and V the Gorilla that we did yesterday, go to the website, go to YouTube, Road to Roota YouTube. I've got it posted there. Amazing interview. Cliff, you get smarter every time you listen to him. Wonderful time. Had a blast. I think it's his last interview for a couple months. He said he's going to take a little break. So soak in everything that you can learn on that one. What I wanted to talk to you about today is one of the subjects we talked on, the WikiLeaks revelations in Vault 7, that our lovely government, the CIA, within the government, the deep embedded part of the CIA, has embedded malware and spying technology into almost every electronic device, including your phones, your laptop. Right now, they're looking at you through your little screen, your TVs. They can listen to you even when it's off. The computer in your car that controls anything from the radio to the brakes or the steering on the more fancy cars. Insane revelations. Very interesting. Cliff High's take is not only did they tell us that they've been embedding this stuff in our electronics for at least, I'd say, 40, 50 years, but in these revelations is the code that they use and the way they go about installing it. So a lot of people out there working on countermeasures around the world to counteract this insane reality that everything we look at that is electronic has any kind of code in it, most likely has some embedded malware that can be used against us if we do anything wrong to the government, or the CIA, or the people within the deep state, as they're called. I would say it is the reason Trump came out and said they were spying on him at Trump Tower, because they were. They're spying on everybody at all times right now. So whether or not they are looking at you while you are sleeping, they probably aren't, but they can. That's the real interesting thing. If you have a Samsung TV in your bedroom and it is off, they can look directly at you and see everything and listen to what you're doing in your bedroom if they chose to. So huge revelation. And the good thing is, as Cliff said, they embedded the codes, the computer codes on how to do it, and so people around the world working on how to counteract it. But it all gets back to, this is the same almost exact thing as I've been saying for years on the Road to Roota, is that computers and derivatives control all our electronic markets these days. And that has been true since the invention of the computer. And it's what Roota means, root A. And I'd like to show you a few things and kind of tie it into how this all works together. The first is this copy of a paper from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. It's called The Ledger. It used to be their monthly newspaper, and then it turned into quarterly. I don't even know if they do it anymore. This is a copy from September of 1980. This is the original Wishes and Rainbows short story written by Deborah Carpenter Beck. And it's all about the Road to Roota stuff, which you can go onto my website. It's all about the need to return to a gold standard and going back from an unbacked system to a gold-backed system or some other type of system. What's the best way to go about it? Talks about gold throughout. This is coming from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. Go to my website, go to the Road to Roota Theory, or go to YouTube, a YouTube video called Discovering the Road to Roota, where I lay all this out. Anyway, this is the original article that was published in September of 1980. And this is what it was turned into. This is a Wishes and Rainbows comic. That's my signature there, because I used to offer these as kind of giveaways until I ran out of comic books. So if you can find one, grab it. But as you can see, this is a comic book called Wishes and Rainbows, created by the Federal Reserve Bank. And as you can tell from the first page, this is published in 1981. It was written by Deborah Carpenter Beck, but you can see it was adapted by a guy named Stephen Duveau. Very important name in the Road to Roota world. It took me a while to find out who this guy was, Stephen DeVoe. First of all, let me show you. This is the updated comic that came out on January 1st, 2007. And January 1st, as you know, is a holiday. And why I was at the Fed Boston website on that day, they announced it with a huge red exclamation point in front of it, along with a teacher's guide. And just screaming, check me out, check me out. So I did, and that's where the Road to Roota theory came from. That the Federal Reserve Bank and people within the United States are working on taking out the banksters, trying to destroy the monetary system by inflating it to kingdom come and soaking up all the benefits. Go to the Road to Roota to check all that out. But here on the inside of this cover as well, you can see that it was right there, adopted by Stephen DeVoe again. And Deborah Carpenter Beck wrote it. There is a different artist this time, Carrie Hartman, compared to the artist the first time. But everything else in here is pretty much exactly the same, except on this one page where Roota is working on determining how to allocate colored flowers to people. And in the original comic, she is writing a formula in the sand. It's called On the Road to the Golden Age. It's an asset allocation formula, Nobel Prize winning formula in the 1960s on how to go back to a gold standard. But in the 2007 version, Roota is writing something completely different. If you can see it, it says 11 plus 9 and an Islamic crescent moon, obviously 9/11. And you can start your conspiracy run from there. So that's kind of how I got started with the Road to Roota, and then it was that name, Roota. What does Roota mean? That's the strangest name I ever heard. I was looking all around the internet for it, couldn't find it, anything. There was a jazz band called Roota Toota, but that wasn't it. And then all of a sudden I found this. This chart is from a early 1970s IBM manual on how to set up a financial computing program. And you can see it's an inverted root system, and root A is the basis of taxes, checkbook, budgeting, and it was a training manual for IBM computing back in the very, very early days of computers. Mostly in like the 60s, they were still using punch cards, and it was in the 70s that they moved more to a digital form. But really interesting stuff. So I kept chasing this down, and why is it important, and how computers back then relate to our financial system today, and how much control computers have. And from the Wikileaks revelations, they have control over everything. Our cars, our electronics. Our government can and does attack us, attack our privacy, attack our freedom, and they're doing it slyly and sneakily, as can be seen from the Wikileaks documents. So back to this guy, Stephen DeVoe, and why he's important. Again, he's the adapter of the comic, and I did some research on him, and I have a slide that I'll just read these off. In one of my presentations, I gave it down in Acapulco. Who is the adapter? This guy, Stephen DeVoe. At first, I couldn't find anything about him. It was like a mystery man. I couldn't find. It was like he's been erased from the internet, which is really interesting, considering he was I'll show you how. He was a computer programmer back in the 1960s and 70s. And I found a few of his resumes and bios. At first, he served in the military intelligence in the 1960s. That was like a red flag. And the question is it the same Stephen DeVoe who worked for the Fed and talked about going back onto a gold standard? Second, he was a computer programmer in the 1970s when there was very few computer programmers. Very few. He graduated from, I think it was Boston College, with a degree in computer programming, and then he worked for the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. Now he's an internationally recognized expert on project implementation, the world-renowned expert on, and it's all done with computers. And he gives these lectures when he came out of hiding in the 1990s. He worked at the Fed Boston from the mid-1970s to the mid-1980s. I found that out not through a resume or anything other than when he graduated, his name on these comics, and then when he took his first job, supposedly according to his resumes, which was in the mid-1980s, and his first job was a computer consultant with JP Morgan, Citibank, these big banks, and something very interesting, which I'll tell you about in a second. His best friend, Stephen DeVoe's best friend, is a legal professor named Harold J. Sullivan, who wrote Civil Rights and Liberties. And the highest award for U.S. District Attorney is called the Harold J. Sullivan Award. But you can't find anything on who that guy is and what what the award was named for. It doesn't say anything about it other than Stephen DeVoe's best friend is a world-renowned expert on legal rights and liberties. He was mentored. Stephen DeVoe was mentored by a guy named George Goodwin Jr., who wrote another very important government article called Little Legislators, Committees of Congress about the Power and Autonomy of Subcommittees in Congress. Now, if you're going to control and rig the financial markets, and you're going to do it on an official basis without anybody knowing it, you're going to need a subcommittee. You can't do it out in front because they'll take you down like they took down Kennedy. But you can do it if you're an expert in setting up these subcommittees. And the mentor of Stephen DeVoe, the guy who adopted the comic for the Fed, is a guy named George Goodwin Jr., who wrote the book on it, literally. DeVoe was also a consultant to the Department of Defense and the U.S. Air Force. This is a guy who adopted a comic book. What's he doing in military intelligence in the 60s and a consultant for the Department of Defense and the U.S. Air Force, and he's one of the very first computer experts in the world. He went and implemented computer programs at certain of these bullion banks who've been rigging the markets ever since. But very key is after he went to the banks, he went to IBM, to a division within IBM called PSDI. And what these guys did is they wrote computer software programs to implement in tools and CNC machines and basically embedded electronics, the exact stuff that is being talked about right now in the Wikileaks revelations. I mean, you just got to throw your hands up and say the connection between Stephen DeVoe, the Road to Roota, the Fed Bank of Boston, and all this other stuff. Now remember, Wikileaks has said this is just 1% of what they have in this Vault 7. And I believe that we will see very soon more things coming out of WikiLeaks as related to our financial markets. How much rigging is going on, who's doing it, and the codes, just like they did for the spying, the codes for rigging the markets within the gold market, the silver market, the stock market, all together. If you think, now we know that they control all our devices, the computer programs embedded within, how big of a step is it to say, oh, they control our financial markets as well with computer programs embedded in the early 1960s and 70s? We know who did it, Stephen DeVoe and Alan Greenspan, the guy who invented Root A, the electronic version of our monetary system that we all believe in today so greatly. So yeah, the connection between WikiLeaks and Road to Roota is becoming more and more clear. I'm going to keep a close eye on the rest of the WikiLeaks revelations, and I guarantee you at some point they'll be talking about Root A, they'll be talking about computers and the Federal Reserve and the monetary system, and it's a real exciting time on the Road to Roota. I hope everybody is on board, as join the Road to Roota, the free side. You can put your email in and get free emails almost daily. YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to do a daily YouTube on all these things that are coming up now, and I've been talking about for the last 15 years, but now people are starting to listen, which is great. This stuff is so important, and it's at a time when our government is transitioning and trying to kick out these bad guys out of government and trying to put in something safe and sane and implode the military-industrial complex and all these people who are really bad human beings, and we need to get them out. One last thing, Bitcoin. If you haven't gotten in Bitcoin, you're too scared of it, you don't understand it, anything. I've been screaming this for 3 years now. Get some Bitcoin and then think about it and worry about it. You can get $10 worth of Bitcoin right now, and on that level, I know some people, well, how do I buy Bitcoin and things like that. Go to YouTube. You can find 1,000 different ways. If you're still struggling, my private robe subscription starting tomorrow, we will be offering a Bitcoin assistance program. So if you're still struggling with Bitcoin and you just can't get there, I'll have a site where a page on the roadtoroota.com website, it'll walk you through the steps of how to get involved with Bitcoin, how to set up your bank account, how to buy it, how to take it offline, put it into a paper wallet. This is all a paper wallet is. And it's got a lot of colors, but the colors don't matter. It's basically two addresses, your public address and your private address. That's all a Bitcoin wallet is. And with every Road to Roota subscription, I download $30 worth of Bitcoin and I mail it to you. This is the only copy that you'll have. And that's what it looks like. And then I'll write in there the amount of Bitcoin that was equal to $30 at the time you got your Road to Roota subscription. And you also get all the other stuff at the Road to Roota, over 3,000 articles on the stuff we're talking about right now and how it evolved over time. And now we're starting to see it with the Trump revelations and Wikileaks. I've been talking about this stuff for 15 years and writing about it, and now I'm coming out on YouTube, and so many more people are getting involved. And it's not the easiest thing to understand right away. Go to that video, Discovering the Road to Roota, and you'll get it. It's not hard these days because it's becoming more and more out in the open. What the banks have done, what the Federal Reserve has done, what the U.S. Treasury has done, how the markets are rigged via computer programs, the insanity of what's going on in the silver market, and the pent-up energy in silver is phenomenal. I mean, if you're looking for an investment right now, if people ask me, would you buy Bitcoin, gold, or silver right now? I say in order. If I had nothing, I'd buy silver, Bitcoin, and then maybe gold just for the fun of it, because there's lots of gold out there. And yes, I love gold too. And the Fed Road to Roota documents say we're going back onto a physical gold standard because there's so much available to the people in the United States, millions of tons, not the 180,000 tons that the mainstream will quote you. But it's great. Having gold in our monetary system would help a lot. Having Bitcoin will help zillion boatloads because Bitcoin's easy to use. Once you get on your phone, it's just so easy to say, okay, I'm sending you $10 worth of Bitcoin, or I'm sending you 0.001 Bitcoin, and boom, the transaction is done right there. There's a big moment in Bitcoin coming up, the approval or denial of the ETF, the Bitcoin ETF. There are 3 ETFs coming up for approval, and whether or not it passes or not ultimately will not matter. It might cause volatility instantly with knee-jerk reactions. I know a lot of hedge funds are planning on loading up if it's denied. So there's a lot of money kind of waiting in the wings for the drop down. Probably, they're thinking below $1,000 a coin. I think it's $1,200 now. I'm not so sure that they're going to kind of deny this ETF because it's part of the plan in the United States to kind of move forward and move on to using Bitcoin as part of the answer to our monetary system problems right now. And Vincent Viola, the guy that Trump put in charge of the army, but got kicked out because he's too crooked to pass the congressional grilling. He's involved with the Winklevoss Brothers ETF through his company called Virtu Financial. I've talked a lot about them. They're one of the main silver riggers and gold riggers. They're in the silver ETF and the gold ETF. They're completely computer-generated, high-frequency trading riggers, but they're involved in this Bitcoin ETF. Now, the Bitcoin ETF is not Bitcoin trading on the blockchain. It's a Bitcoin derivative. So I wouldn't I wouldn't suggest investing in it. But if it does get approved, it makes trillions of dollars available in the system, in the current unbacked fiat monetary system. Trillions of dollars are available to be invested into Bitcoin, which obviously with Bitcoin's market cap at $18 billion, easily drive the price of Bitcoin skyward. And ultimately, it won't matter if the ETF is approved or not. People will be continuing to move to Bitcoin through the weeks, months, and years. Cliff High has Bitcoin in his data going out throughout the century. Imagine that. How high a price will Bitcoin be in 2099? So, yeah, this is exciting times. I'm going to take advantage of the sunny weather and get outside and get some sun. It's been a long wet road because we have rain in the forecast for next week again. I'll put some more videos out on the Orville Dam situation. It's down to, I think there's 40 feet left, where there was like 60 feet before it tops out, and the spillway's closed for good, they said, because it erodes and it might take down the whole dam, so it's the emergency spillway, which is eroding as well. So we're in deep trouble in California. Hang in there, Californians. Get your water gear ready. Maybe a little canoe that you can go to the local store and buy a loaf of bread. Way extreme. Too early to say that, but Cliff Status says a lot of that kind of stuff is coming up. Thank you for listening. Bix Weir, roadtoruta.com. Make sure you subscribe, like, share this video. Share it with everybody because people are waking up and it's a great time. Talk to you later.